So for our ACAS that we're gonna be working on today, we're on 26A. We're going to be investigating political, economic, and social developments during the Jackson Age. So the two terms that Jackson's in office is referred to as the Jackson Age. Basically, we're gonna be looking into and kind of researching the different elements that happened during Andrew Jackson's presidency, his political side of it, and also the social elements of the economy and people that Andrew Jackson didn't necessarily like. We're not gonna get all the way through all the notes today, but that's okay. So the portion of this I can statement we're gonna be doing today, it's gonna be I can explain Jacksonian democracy. So Jacksonian democracy is also just the way the US government is ran through Andrew Jackson's presidency. So how he does things is gonna be vastly different of how other presidents have done things before him, okay? So you have Jacksonian democracy and also the Age of Jackson, same thing, okay? Well, the thing specifically we're gonna be looking at today is how he ran the government and how he expanded the right to vote to all white males in the United States. Make sense? Yes? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so on E-class, as always, have all the notes already done and other activities we'll talk about in a second. We're only gonna go through a few slides and then we're gonna watch a brief video on Andrew Jackson and then we're gonna move on from there. So we're in Unit 5. We're still talking about the creation of the United States, but we're now on the 7th president. We do not talk about John Quincy Adams. I don't know why we just skip over number 6 and go to 7. So know that this era is talking about expanding further into the United States. As we talked about, of course, you have those original 13 colonies. And then we have Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, and Wisconsin. But then after Thomas Jefferson purchases the Louisiana territory, you have a vast amount of what is modern day United States, okay? And now you have all this land. People want to move over further west into the United States, so we're gonna kind of be looking at that today. So we talked about Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, and Monroe. We're gonna be talking about Andrew Jackson. We'll be talking about the Indian Removal Act later and also the nullification crisis. So for now, we're going to be talking about Jackson as a president and the right to vote. So this is the picture on the $20 bill. That looks familiar to you guys, right? Yeah? That picture?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's his portrait that's on the $20 bill. You see this political cartoon, you're gonna see it again. Is there anything that stands out to you guys about this political cartoon? How is Jackson dressed?
As a king.
Right. How does that kind of oppose the,
That's why they watch the free people.
yeah. So, America is a what?
Free country.
It is a free country, what is it called?
Democratic.
Yeah.
Democratic.
It's a democratic country, it's a democracy, right? So
Yes.
how is this kind of poking fun at Jackson if he's dressed up like a king?
Looks bad.
It looks bad, yes. But if we're a democracy and our president is dressed up like a king, how is that kind of showing Jackson in a negative light?
It looks like he wants to take the government down and start a
Yeah.
kingdom again.
Yeah, so it's showing that Andrew Jackson is not behaving as a president, he's more so behaving like a king, which goes against everything that the Americans have started to build so far. So they're going against all those constitutional rights they created, all that good stuff, okay? I don't know if you guys have your slides open, but if you look on the slides, he's stepping on the Constitution. He's stepping on the Constitution here, so that can be seen as kind of like, what?
You think he's above them?
Say it again?
You think he's above them? Like,
Above him, yeah. So like he's above the document that's basically the defining document for the one of the defining documents for the United States. You're stepping on it. That means you do not care about the people. You're gonna advance yourself and your party no matter what. So it's kind of showing how disrespectful he is towards the American people and the government itself. Now, it's not to say that Andrew Jackson did not do some good things, but he's a very controversial president because he does some things that's very heinous, to put it nicely, towards other groups of people, the Native Americans, which we'll talk about later. But know that he is dressed up like a king. That goes against everything that the U.S. is standing for at this particular time. The U.S. is a democracy, and he's not a king. But he behaves in a way that makes it seem like he has absolute power over the government. Okay? How many houses of representation do we have in the United States?
3.
500.
2.
Oh, two?
Remember, we have the House of Representatives and the Senate.
Oh.
Okay? Remember, those were created to create checks and balances. However, during Andrew Jackson's presidency, he's going to basically ignore those checks and balances because I'm president, I'm gonna do what I wanna do. So he's gonna do things that's gonna rub people the wrong way, and it's gonna be kind of rocky, okay? So, with Andrew Jackson's version of democracy, he has politics that are not necessarily legal, if you wanna put it that way. They're not necessarily legal, and he's doing things his way. So that particular form of democracy is called Jacksonian democracy. Quick side note, y'all, my bad. Just want to front load y'all with some vocab real quick, because I just remembered. Some topics we're going to be talking about today. We're going to have to talk about suffrage. If you guys see that word suffrage, can you repeat after me? Suffrage?
Suffrage.
Suffrage. If you see suffrage, you're gonna see it again. That is referring to the right to vote, okay? We're gonna see it again with women when we get further into the progressive movement. But during this particular time period, that suffrage is pertaining to what group? What group could vote?
White man.
Right. So Jackson's going to give the right to vote to all white men. We'll talk about that more in detail in a second. But that term suffrage is referring to the right to vote, okay? Women won't get their right to vote to the 19th Amendment. We'll talk about that later. So, one thing that Jackson did believe, he believed that everybody, white men, all white men, should have the right to expand over into further west. So they can get past those first 13 and kind of expand over. Who's living on that land?
Indians.
Yes, so later we're gonna see how that's gonna impact them, but because all these people are coming over to the United States, or there's so many people there already, they have to expand over into land that's being used, so they're gonna have to do something about that later. Another vocab word you have is a spoil system. Okay, can you repeat after me, spoil system?
Spoil system.
Alright, so this is a thing that made Andrew Jackson a controversial president, because what he did, he created this kind of environment to where he basically fired like 2,000 government workers when he took office, and he replaced them with people that were very loyal to him and his friends. So, I'll use it as an example. Let's say for instance, Brian, they make you the principal of the school.
Amazing.
Alright, so let's say for instance there is an emergency situation. You don't have the training to do your job as a principal. So let's say for instance we have to evacuate for whatever reason, right? How can that be a negative thing if you don't have the training on how to do that?
Because I don't know what to do.
True. You don't know what to do. Now think about how if you have people in the government that don't know what they're doing, running the government, how is that gonna impact the government and also the economy overall?
Everything is gonna go to hell.
It's gonna be very bad. So, know that these people didn't have any type of experience in these job situations. So what they ended up calling this term, it was a spoil system. So when you guys think about the spoil systems, understand that Jackson was basically appointing people that were very loyal to him or his friends into government office, okay? That's gonna end up affecting the bank system, which we'll talk about later. But, that's like my example. If Brian were to become the principal, if you have an emergency situation, you don't know how to run the government properly. another thing that made, Jackson controversial is because